Welcome to the Yours in Marketing podcast. On this episode, we speak with Tim Soulo, the Chief Marketing Officer and Product Advisor at Ahrefs. This episode of the Yours in Marketing podcast was really special because I was able to speak with Tim Soulo, who is the Chief Marketing Officer of Ahrefs. Now, if you don't know what Ahrefs is, it is one of the, if not the best, SEO tools out there. It can help you find what kind of content to write, what keywords you should rank for, how many links you have, how authoritative your site is. It does it all. It's very intuitive. It's really simple to use, and yet it's so powerful. Speaking with Tim was a pure delight because, first of all, he's a great guy, but he's also so knowledgeable about SEO and marketing in general. So we talked about the future of SEO. We talked about how B2B leaders can leverage SEO to grow their businesses. We also talk about his switch from BloggerJet, which was the blog that he was running, to going to Ahrefs and moving from the Ukraine to Singapore. Really interesting story, and overall, a fantastic guy and a powerhouse in SEO. He's a great Twitter follow. He's an even better person. I highly recommend this. So here's what you're going to get from this episode. We start really heavy on SEO, obviously, and how you can leverage it as a competitive advantage for your business. Whether you're a small business owner, a B2B leader, a marketer, you're just starting your career, this really dives deep into how to use SEO effectively for business, plain and simple. We're also going to talk about career changes and how to go from running your own blog to becoming a CMO and what that looks like. We're also going to talk about the future of SEO. So stick around. You're going to learn a lot about SEO from one of the most brilliant minds out there. Without any further ado, here is the interview with Tim Soulo. Hey, how you doing? It's morning there, right?
Yeah, it's 9:40. So I slept well. Rejuvenated and stuff.
Is it Friday there?
Yes.
You're ahead of us. Okay, yeah. So it's 6:40 p.m. here in California. So it's I've never done an interview internationally. I'm usually all in the United States. So this is cool.
Thanks a lot for accommodating.
Thank you, because I'm absolutely stoked to talk to you. I listened to your most recent podcast when you met with Pat Flynn on the Smart Passive Income. That was really cool. I'm an SEO as well. We kind of have the same background. You're obviously, you're a notch above me for sure. So I'm really excited to talk to you, but just listening to that podcast and having you simplify SEO was really cool for me, because sometimes it's just, when you're doing client work, you just get so into it that you forget to take it back to the basics. And so it's nice to have that reminder, especially coming from somebody that's as technically savvy as you, to hear how important it is to simplify.
I don't consider myself technically savvy, to be honest. So
really? Well, so all your posts and stuff, they come across as technical. So my first question for you would be, for your personality, do you consider yourself to be more creative than technical?
I'm 100% more creative. Like back in school, I was one of the best in math, physics, chemistry, and all that stuff. But over time, I didn't go the development and programming route. I did go the marketing route. So I think I developed the neurological things in my brain that help me with creative stuff, and they don't do that much of technical things. So whenever I publish all sorts of research on Ahrefs blog, it's actually my ideas of what I want to study and how. But then we have data science team. We have amazing developers who actually do the job. So it's not me doing all the research. I'm just the guy who is creating those ideas. Yeah.
On your blog, you mentioned that kind of your motto about content is don't write about marketing strategies that you've heard from somebody else. You should write about things that you've personally tried. Yeah, and I really like that, because it's way too easy to just take what Tim said from Ahrefs and then copy and paste. And it's great to share other people's thoughts, but at the same time, what are you testing? And that's something that I think I could definitely do a better job of as well. But what's your process for that? Like when you're looking at something that you want to test, how do you even find that idea to begin with? And then take me through your process of how you actually go about testing it.
To be honest, I don't think we have any checklist or outlined process. Usually, whenever we try to toggle a topic that we want to rank for, it is SEO related, because obviously we want to squeeze mentions of our tools there and promote ourselves and our content. So whenever we're writing an article about something, for example, link building or broken link building specifically, usually what 99% of people or bloggers would do is they would write either their thoughts, opinions, like how they think broken link building should work, or how they seen others do broken link building. But whenever we do give some kind of advice, I usually tell my team, or I do it myself, we actually want to perform an experiment. So if we talk about broken link building, we want to build some of our own broken links and tell people, here's how many emails we've sent, here's how many opportunities we were able to find, here's how we reached out to people, here's how many of them replied, and here's how many links we got as a result. So quite often we are being like 100% honest with our results, and we say, yeah, broken link building is like a hyped up strategy, everyone is talking about it, but at the end of the day, in our own experience, we acquired like 1% of links from all the opportunities we had. So you should like lower your expectations and don't blame us for like doing broken link building and figuring out that you struggle to get those links. Yeah, you will get a few, but not that many. And this applies to pretty much every piece of advice that we're giving on our blog. Another interesting article is that we recently wrote about outsourcing content, how to work with outsourced writers, where to hire them, etc., etc. Again, we could just go from our opinions or how we think it should work, like in our, I don't know, imaginary world or something. But we actually went and found different websites, different platforms where you can hire writers. We posted a job ad. We received a lot of applicants. We vetted them, and we have created like a table, a spreadsheet with our results. So on Upwork, you can get this many applicants, and the quality is this. Like according to our standards, the quality is this. On ProBlogger, you get this and that. So whenever we create content, we don't just express our own opinions or thoughts or whatever. We actually try to do stuff and give people the exact experiments, the exact data, the exact numbers of how it went for us. Another great example that I often reference is everyone can write an article about like unhealthy food and McDonald's being unhealthy, but there was a guy who actually ate in McDonald's for 30 days, like exclusively in McDonald's. And his article went, I think he published it either on BuzzFeed or somewhere like New York Times, like some super popular publication. And this article went viral. It was trending on Twitter. It was trending on Reddit. It was everywhere because the guy actually did something, and he has proven he measured his weight. He went to doctor to measure his blood pressure, etc., etc., etc. But he actually ate in McDonald's for 30 days. This is not many people will do. And this is how you create great content. Don't just say things. Do things and talk about your own experience.
For business leaders that are listening to this podcast, if they're looking for kind of a revamp of their current content strategy, you'd offer that the best way to really produce effective content is basically to go out and actually do something instead of just writing about things that everybody else is already talking about.
One philosophy that I'm trying to promote right now is that whenever you want to create content for your company, for your business that will have business value for you and not just like arbitrary traffic or whatever, or like number of published articles per week, the person who would be creating your content should be the most qualified person in your entire company. So usually what people do, like, for example, I have a construction company, like I build buildings or whatever, and I would hire someone on Upwork who has experience in writing about pets, parenting, etc., but like zero experience in construction. And what this person would do, they would go research some other articles, maybe read some books if you're lucky and that's a responsible person, and they will start writing a content about construction. While as a business owner, I am the one having a ton of unique experience, a ton of unique examples of how I was building those buildings, of how I was like making those contracts, which roadblocks did I face, etc., etc. So it is me who should be writing that content. So a lot of people use a workaround and they hire the so-called editor or ghostwriter, a person who is experienced in interviewing people and kind of getting the content out of the people. Because if I'm good at construction, then I know all the bells and whistles. It doesn't mean that I'm necessarily good at structuring my thoughts and finding a way to write a decent article with a good headline, with a good intro, logical instruction, etc., etc. But I can hire a person who can effectively get that information out of me, like in the course of a few interviews, and create amazing content that would be still the byline would be the author would be me, because it's all my content, but it was structured by an editor, it was structured by someone else. And here at Ahrefs, we are a perfect example of having the most qualified person create content, because for the larger part of me being the Ahrefs Chief Marketing Officer, I was creating a lot of content and I was participating almost in every single article that was published on our blog, even if it didn't have my name on it. I was trying to help my coworkers to create amazing content. I was giving them my perspective, my thoughts, telling them how to run experiments, etc., etc. So unless the most qualified person in your business, whatever the niche of your business is participating in the creation of amazing content, amazing unique content, you won't really have an edge above competition who are just hiring copywriters to do that for you.
So if I were to tell you, I'm a new business, I've got a little bit of traffic, but I haven't really started creating content yet for my site, what kind of tips would you give me if I were starting at zero for building out my blog into something that would actually have an impact?
Yeah, so first of all, do some keyword research, because you need to know what people are searching for within your niche, and make sure that the topics that you will find in the course of keyword research are something where you can plug the mentions of your business. So here at Ahrefs, in our content team, in our content roadmap, we have a score called business potential. So what it is, it's a simple score from 0 to 3, and we grade every topic that we are considering to write about. So business potential of 3 means that the topic that you're covering, your tool, your product or service, is an irreplaceable solution within the topic. So whenever people will search for that in Google, for example, how to lose weight, and you have a magic supplement, amazing exercise course or whatever, and it's better than anything else, and they won't be able to lose weight without it, I think that would be actually a diet, because dieting is the most essential thing for losing weight, but I'm not an expert. Anyway, so if your thing is absolutely essential, it is irreplaceable, it is business potential of 3. Business potential of 2, it means that your thing is kind of helpful, but it's not essential in any way. So I just discussed supplements. Supplements are helpful, but if you're overeating, if you're going to McDonald's every day, you're not going to lose weight. So that's business potential of 2. Business potential of 1, it means that you can mention your product within the topic, but it's not essential in any way, and the chances that people will be interested to buy it are slim. So first, people will be super interested to research a nice diet. If they're looking to lose weight, they will be interested in supplements. They will take them to add to their diet. But if you're selling kettlebells, you can mention kettlebells, that kettlebell is a nice thing, and you can do a lot of exercises, and many of them will help you lose weight. But it's not as essential as dieting or some interesting supplements, some interesting chemistry that helps you lose weight. And business potential of 0 means that there's no way to even mention your business within the article. So this is what we're doing. Whenever we do keyword research and we find different topics, some of them has huge search traffic potential, some of them has medium search traffic potential, we always add the business potential score. And sometimes we might ignore topics that promise us a lot of traffic if we see that the business potential of 1. So we can mention our tool, we can mention Ahrefs, but the chances that people will be interested to try it out are slim, because the actual article gives them other solutions to their problem. So these are the 2 most essential things for researching the kind of content that you should be publishing. And then once you know which topics can bring you traffic while also having a lot of business potential for your website, for your business, you should, as a business owner, you should participate in creating that content, or you should involve knowledgeable people in your company to help copywriters, to help editors to create that content that would be unique to your business, that would be unique to your experience. And oftentimes, if you really want to take it a step further, you will have to allocate a little bit of your business resources to running some kind of experiments, to trying out things that you could write about. This is something we're doing at Ahrefs. We're sometimes running some data studies, and we're only running those data studies not because they help us improve our tools some way, improve our business in some way, but because they help us create unique content that attracts attention of people, that attracts backlinks, etc., etc. So that's basically the process we are following, and that's something that I advise to business owners if they really want to create the kind of content that will bring customers and sales to their business and not just arbitrary traffic numbers.
Yeah, so you're practicing what you preach, and I've followed the Ahrefs blog for probably 4 years now. I mean, it's been a while. Probably a year after I got into SEO, really, I started like going heavy on reading Backlinko and Ahrefs and Moz. So it's one of the top resources. So if anybody's listening that hasn't looked at the Ahrefs blog yet, you should check it out because it ranges from really simple stuff like learning the basics of SEO, but then also it spans to highly technical things that you probably wouldn't be able to figure out by yourself. It's a really cool resource. But Tim, I want to take a step back. I want to start a little bit more toward the beginning for you and kind of go through your path. So you're born in the Ukraine.
And raised.
And then you just recently moved to Singapore. So you were in Ukraine for most of your life so far.
Yes, for like 29 years or something.
In Ukraine right now, is there kind of a tech vibe to it? Are the jobs there more digital focused like they are here in America? What's it like over there? Because obviously I have no idea what Ukraine is like. I've never been there, so...
I think the tech vibe in Ukraine started quite a long time ago, because in Ukraine, as well as in like ex-Soviet Union, like Russia, Belarus and stuff, we have really good math, like physics education. So we're raising kids with a lot of like brain circuitry around the logic, around math. If you ask a lot of like product people, a lot of SaaS companies and et cetera, a lot of them are using web developers and developers from Ukraine, because we have nice schools, we have nice universities, and overall people are eager to learn and eager to tap into those technical things. And one final thing is that hiring a developer in Ukraine, it is much cheaper than hiring a developer in the United States. It's like levels cheaper. So this is why a lot of companies outsource their work to Ukraine. And this is why in Ukraine we have a lot of talent, like tons of talent.
Well, it just so happens that Ahrefs was founded in Ukraine, right?
Yes. Our founder is from Ukraine. Our CTO is from Ukraine. And one of our chief developers is from Belarus.
That's kind of a big coincidence that you're from Ukraine, Ahrefs is founded there, but now you're in Singapore. So I want to talk about that transition because to my understanding, it wasn't too long ago that you actually joined forces with Ahrefs. So how did they approach you? How did they convince you to come over to their side? And how did the move to Singapore all happen?
I initially thought that it was me who landed myself that opportunity, because I was working on my personal blog. I was creating some content there, and I was doing outreach around the industry to get some links, to get some traction, to get some acquaintances, etc. So I reached out to Ahrefs because I published some article, and back in the days, like it was like more than 4 years ago, they were publishing the so-called link roundup. So here are the like best articles from the industry from last week, and I wanted to appear in that link roundup. So the way I remember it is that I reached out to Ahrefs with my article, and I got a reply from Ahrefs CEO Dmitry, and he said that he reviewed my content and he wanted to work with me on like a few projects. But later when I talked to Dmitry, he actually said that that outreach email that I sent them, it was left without reply. He didn't see it, but he noticed me online. There was a website, inbound.org. Now it's a community for marketers. It's no longer live as far as I know. And there were like different discussions on different marketing topics. People were sharing links. It's kind of like Reddit, but for marketers. And there was AMA by another Ukrainian marketer, N Smarty. She's quite famous in the industry as well. And I was participating in that AMA. I was asking her questions again about being someone from Ukraine who is doing marketing for US markets, who moved to US, etc., etc., etc. And Dmitry, the founder and CEO of Ahrefs, was also reading her AMA. He saw me, he checked me out. He saw that I had published articles on Moz, that I had my own blog, that I was doing my own WordPress plugins. I was launching my own online tools. So he reached out to me, like asking me if I'm interested to like do some projects with Ahrefs. And within like just a few weeks, we figured out that we're a good fit for each other because I'm super passionate about marketing, product and stuff. And he's super technical. So I think pretty much within 3 or 4 weeks, he invited me to come to Singapore and be in charge of marketing for Ahrefs.
That is a rapid ascent to being the CMO of Ahrefs. So what was going through your mind when that was all happening so quickly? Were you just like totally blown away that 1 second you're just running your own blog and kind of doing your own thing, and now you're the CMO of Ahrefs?
Well, to be honest, CMO is like, it sounds like a fancy title, but when I came to Singapore, there were like, I think 16 people in the entire team, and I was the only marketing person. So I was the CMO of myself. CMO is no department, and I had to build the entire thing from scratch. And right now, still our marketing team is quite small. We have like 8 or 10 people. So I'm not the kind of CMO who runs like 50 people marketing team, etc. The entire team at Ahrefs is less than 50 people, actually. I think we're at 45 or 46 right now. But I was totally blown away by the fact that I had to move to Singapore, entirely changed my life. Because for like 29 years, I didn't live anywhere but Ukraine. So it was like a huge move to move my entire life from a country to country.
How's the vibe different from Ukraine to Singapore? How does it feel different?
Like everything is different. It's much more safe here. It's much more hot here. It's much more expensive here, but it's also much more convenient here. I like Singapore better, of course.
Sure. Ukraine gets cold in the winter, doesn't it?
Yeah, it gets cold, and I really not a big fan of how the seasons change in Ukraine, from like super hot in summer to super cold in winter, and some like mud and rain in between.
Does that ever snow?
Yeah, but not as frequently as it used to snow when I was a kid. So something is really changing in the weather.
Well, I'm from Utah in the United States, and it's kind of like that. It's probably not as extreme, but the summers are 100+ degrees, and then the winters it's snowing the entire time, and you're just like, what is happening? But yeah, I can relate a little bit to that. But for people listening here, it's insane that you said you had a team of like 45 people working on Ahrefs right now. Considering how awesome that platform is, like I've been using it forever, and considering how awesome it is, how much data you have, how well designed everything is, it kind of blows my mind that there's not more people working on that project. So that kudos to your team, because it really is like, I think it's the gold standard for SEO tools. Anybody listening to this that needs an SEO tool, if you're like deciding between SEMrush, Ahrefs, whatever, Ahrefs is the best in my opinion. I don't think it's really even close.
Thank you.
I'm not saying that just because you're here. I will constantly put stuff out on Twitter from Ahrefs because I really believe in it. I want to talk a little bit about the future of SEO. I know that you've talked a lot about where SEO's at, and you've laid out a ton of stuff in your blog and on Ahrefs over the course of time, as well as on your recent podcast episodes. But I kind of want to go into what it's going to look like 10 years from now, or even 1 year from now. Like, what's the future of SEO as you see it?
I don't think I'm in a position to predict the future of SEO, but overall, I think Google must be working a lot on the behavioral side of things, on understanding if people like content or not, and experimenting there. As much as I hate to say it, I think that the influence of links might go down a little bit, and the influence of quality content that is written by qualified people, as I explained, the importance of that should rise. But I'm not sure how long it would take for Google to identify original content that is written by kind of opinion leaders, by people who have practice, versus content that is written by copywriters, because just recently there was an article on Search Engine Land where a guy created an experiment. He ranked a lorem ipsum website with just like one keyword, and Google ate it. So since Google cannot identify every topic, and they can still rank websites with like entire lorem ipsum and with just a few like key placements of the keyword, it will still take them quite a while to figure out how to do this. But overall, I can feel that they have a lot of motivation to do this, because like it is causing them a lot of problem that people can rank poor content with links, and good content is floating somewhere like down the pool.
Yeah, it's just like out in the ethers. You don't have any idea where the good stuff is sometimes.
Yeah,
like kind of what you're saying, the way that I see it right now, and I think it might continue this way, is it seems like Google is just really putting an emphasis on the user experience over almost anything else. And behavior, same kind of idea. just looking at, is this actually relevant? Does it provide real value? And that over time is probably going to become more important than all of those technical things. The technical things won't go away, but if you just look at where the SEO in the past was, where you could kind of get away with black hat SEO for a little minute there, but now it's like, it doesn't work. Even at this point, you have to at least do something right to be able to rank. And going forward, Google's only going to get smarter. What are your thoughts on voice search? Do you think that that's a viable thing that businesses should be optimizing for and worrying about right now?
I personally feel a little bit kind of left behind, like an old dinosaur, because I still don't have any like Alexa or Google Echo or like whatever those devices are called in my home. And I'm not really using voice search on my iPhone as well, probably because my first language is Russian, and sometimes whenever I say to something in English to my phone or any other device, it just cannot recognize what exactly I'm saying. It's not as good at identifying accents. I think Scottish people might struggle as well with voice search. But yeah, I'm not the early adopter, I would say. So there was a lot of hype around chatbots. I didn't jump on that bandwagon. And recently I saw some articles saying that why chatbots has flopped, why they didn't become the next hot thing. Similarly, there was a lot of hype around Google Glass, and it didn't go anywhere. So right now, everyone is hyping up voice search because like this is a hot new thing, and people need to talk about something. If you're a conference speaker, if you're a thought leader, opinion leader, you have to come up with new things to talk about. You have to like generate hype. So this is why a lot of people are talking about voice search. But so far, I'm not seeing it being integrated into our lives. For me, it feels awkward. Like whenever you're walking the street and you're talking to your phone, like find me this, find me that. In the same way at home, like I'm pretty confident that most voice searches at home are limited to find me this video on YouTube, find me that TV series on Netflix, etc., etc. So for global things, I don't think anyone would search like find me how to do SEO audits. And I don't know, you will watch it on TV or something. So I don't see voice search as a big thing yet. Maybe it will become, but yeah, I'm not there yet.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Like for most people, it's just easier to see how it all plays out because a lot of this stuff flops before it ever becomes relevant. It seems like it should amount to something in the future, but I agree with you. I'm not sure that it's really there yet. I have an Alexa at my house, but I have no clue how it's supposed to really make my life easier. I've used it, like I'll use it to play Spotify or to set an alarm sometimes. Yeah. It's like, I can do that with my phone too. So it's still the applications, I think it's just kind of floating out there waiting to really be found how it's going to really apply. So it might be a little bit too early for that. If I give you a choice between all the social media platforms and you can only pick one and you can never use any of the other ones ever again, what would your ideal go-to social platform be?
Whoa, I can tell you that it's definitely not LinkedIn. 100%. And it's not Instagram because Instagram is mostly for people who have visual stuff or like fashionistas or like create like fun content that others like comedians or stuff. Yeah, but for many businesses, actually, Instagram can do well if you sell physical products that look good or have some kind of applications that look good in a video. Instagram can be a pretty good source. As well as working with influencers, if you want to put your product in influencers' hands, Instagram is probably the best platform. For me personally, I'm torn apart between Facebook and Twitter, because on Facebook, you have an opportunity to create those groups. We have a pretty huge Facebook community of Ahrefs customers on Facebook, and it is very helpful for us as a business in many ways. For example, if we're contemplating what kind of feature we should release next, I would just go to our Facebook community, launch a quick poll, and gather a lot of opinions. And it's not necessarily the final decision, what the group says, but it helps us understand the issue better and maybe make a more educated decision or understand the consequences of what we're about to do. So Facebook groups, I like them a lot. Plus, I like a lot the Facebook ads. Even though like people are complaining that Facebook is pay to play, that you don't get any organic reach. Yeah, this is true. But still, I think for businesses, if you're running a business, the cost of reaching thousands and thousands of people is pretty cheap compared to AdWords. AdWords is freaking so expensive. So you get so much more traffic from Facebook, even if it's not as targeted as from AdWords, because people are actually looking for specific things, while on Facebook, you're kind of interrupting them with whatever you want to show them. But still, I like the fact that we can run Facebook ads and expose people to whatever we want to expose them for. And Twitter, I like that platform because it's a nice way to stay in touch with some key people from your industry, quickly exchange opinions, and maybe broadcast some of your own opinions there. So I think for businesses, Facebook is better because you can create communities, you can run ads, etc., etc. But for personal branding and for networking, Twitter is much better because it feels more genuine. Facebook, kind of sending a personal message on Facebook feels a little bit more personal and intruding than tweeting at someone like, hey, what do you think about this? So this is my opinion of the social platforms.
I think that's going to surprise a lot of people. It surprised me that you mentioned Facebook, because a lot of people have just totally given up on Facebook because of the organic reach, but I mean, personally, obviously, when I post things on Facebook, it doesn't go anywhere if you're not running ads. But Facebook groups is probably something that most people are not leveraging. But do you think it's too late to get into that and start building a group now? Or do you think it's still a good time to try and build that up?
Our experience with the Facebook group is different from what might be with other people, because you mentioned building a Facebook group, which means that you want to create the community. In our case, Ahrefs has a community. So in our case, Facebook group is just a platform where our community is hanging out. So our group is closed. We don't let anyone in. We only let our customers. So once you sign up for Ahrefs account and pay for the first month of service, we will send you a link here, like you have become a customer, so you can join our private Facebook community. And we only accept people who are paying customers to our Facebook community. So we don't need to grow it in a sense as other people. When you're an independent blogger and you create a Facebook group, Facebook community about something, and you naturally want that community to grow as much as possible so that you get more exposure on Facebook. That's not our case. We have our customer base, we have our audience. So we simply funnel our audience towards Facebook because we figured out that for us, Facebook is the most convenient platform. For example, before I joined Ahrefs, I think they also tried to create a community in Slack. And that failed miserably because Slack has so much conversations going, so much channels, etc., etc. While with Facebook, it's much more simple and much more convenient. So yeah, we were not really trying to create any kind of community on Facebook as much as we simply use Facebook group as the platform where our existing community is hanging out.
There will be a lot of business leaders listening to this that maybe be able to leverage the same kind of thing if they have a community that they already have, just trying to switch it over a little bit and invite them to join a Facebook group. I think that's a great idea, because then, like you mentioned, when you have those things that you want to bounce off the customer and ask them, hey, what would you think about this feature? Then you're just hearing directly from people that actually care about that stuff instead of just guessing, which again ties back into that whole user experience thing. So it comes full circle, whether you're on social media, paid advertising, SEO, the better you can create a customer experience that is convenient for everybody involved, the more likely you are to sell, to make more revenue, to get more leads, whatever your goal is. So I think that that's super powerful. I want to talk a little bit about your speaking engagements, because you've done conferences before.
Yeah.
What was your first conference? Were you nervous? Did you have anything that you were really worried about for that first conference? And where was it? What'd you talk about?
I don't remember my first conference, so let me talk about my first podcast interview. I was so freaking stressed that I asked for all the questions that the host is going to ask me in advance. I wrote all the answers, and then we weren't doing like a video call like we're doing right now with you, because I was actually reading all my answers from the piece of paper, and I was sweating like hell, and my voice was trembling. I was so stressed out during that interview. But over time, I think to date, I did over 30 podcast interviews, maybe even more. So I feel much more comfortable and natural, and they don't stress out and they don't ask any questions in advance. So yeah, for me, the start was super intense. And I'm not even a native speaker, so it is easy for me when I'm stressed to start forgetting words, start forgetting how to construct sentences, etc., etc. So it was super challenging. So whenever someone is listening to our interview and they are native speaker and they are afraid of doing podcasts, always think about me, not a native speaker who tried to do this, and how stressed I was to do this. So you guys have a huge advantage. So just start doing it. It will get better over time. As for like public speaking, like from the stage, I don't really remember where was my first speaking engagement. Probably it was a smaller crowd, maybe a crowd of 30 people or something, some local meetup or local event. And again, I was stressed as hell. I was like going through my slides like a madman. Actually, I think slides is a pretty nice hack to delivering a presentation, because if you're afraid that you're going to forget things, simply create slides for every single talking point that you want to cover. It's okay having 80 slides, but it's pretty bad having like only 5 slides. So if you go to the internet and search for advice on delivering presentations and such, now everyone will tell you that it's better to switch through slides fast and keep people interesting than to turn on one slide and keep talking for like 5 to 10 minutes with just one slide there. So yeah, for conferences, I think I'm still stressed whenever I go on stage, but again, not as much as I used to be. I think it will take me 10 or 15 more appearances on the stage to feel more comfortable with that. And another thing is that when I'm nervous on stage, I'm starting to do some like walking routine, like 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. And one of my friends, Matt Diggity, he's also like an SEO influencer, a speaker. He actually took a video of me and then he posted on Twitter a looped version of me like doing that walk there and back. And he also put a Despacito song above it. So yeah, he made fun of me big time. Right now, one of my objectives for like speaking in real life is to be conscious of not doing that walking, dancing routine of 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. Yeah, if anyone is looking to do more speaking engagements and they're afraid, I think from my experience, it is perfectly normal to be afraid. It is perfectly normal to be stressed as hell. It is perfectly normal to forget things during presentation, to say some stupid things. Like, this is the only way for you to learn and get better over time.
The reason I asked that is I just wanted to have your take on thought leadership in general, because it's something that you're really obviously getting into now. As the CMO of Ahrefs, you're in front of a lot more people. And so you are considered a thought leader, whether you like it or not. That's how people will look at you and see your content. So if you have any tips on people, the businesses particularly that are looking to establish that thought leader, what's the best way to present information so that you're not stating the obvious, that you're actually providing valuable information? Like, how can people really master thought leadership?
I don't think that stating the obvious is such a bad thing. I think that what seems obvious to you is not obvious for a lot of people. And you mentioned I did podcast interview with Pat Flynn, and I talked about this super obvious, the super basic SEO concepts. So whenever any like a seasoned SEO expert will listen to that interview, they will think that Tim is a dumbass. He doesn't know shit about SEO. Like, why did Pat even invite him to that interview? Because he talked about the very basic things that even like my grandma knows. But that's the point. Like on Twitter, there was a lot of buzz about this interview, and a lot of people were thanking me for like bringing SEO down to earth and going from the complex technical concepts, like, I don't know, how to figure out canonical tags, how to implement schema on your website, how to optimize for mobile, etc., how to optimize your crawl budget, view your logs, etc. This stuff is overwhelming to people, and they simply give up on SEO, and SEO is such a great channel. So I think of myself not as the thought leader who would push like entirely new concepts like voice search, etc., to people. I think of myself as an oversimplified SEO guy. Actually, when I started the YouTube channel for Ahrefs, the video series that I was putting out every week were literally called Oversimplified SEO. And I was talking about the very basic concepts of SEO, and that was getting a lot of views and a lot of positive feedback. I actually think that talking about the very basic things is a nice thing to do, it because there are a ton of people who still don't know the things that you know. And if you're only going to cater for like 5% people who are more or less at your level. All the other 95% of people won't understand you. And I actually kind of experienced that issue on one of the latest conference talks that I did from stage, because I actually tried to bring the complexity down. I tried to include less like research numbers, fancy graphs, etc., etc. And I thought that when I was on stage, I was explaining everything in super simple way. And even though my English is not perfect, I am incapable of explaining things in a very complicated way. But then after my talk, when I thought that it was like simple and obvious, and a lot of people, a lot of like SEO professionals will say that Tim doesn't know hell about SEO. Some guys approached me and said like, Tim, you have a nice strategy of talking from stage. You overwhelm people with stuff that no one understands, and everyone is now thinking that you're the god of SEO. And I'm like, okay, that was like totally not my goal. I was trying to make things simple as opposed to trying to look like super knowledgeable and trying to present from stage like, here's the stuff you will never understand, but I will present it to you. So this is the thing.
Well, it's kind of like back when you're at school and a substitute teacher comes on or whatever and says, don't be afraid to ask questions because somebody else might have the same question, but then nobody actually raised their hand to ask the question. But once some kid does and says, hey, I don't understand this, then all of a sudden, like everybody in the room is like relieved that they, so I like that. I think that really applies to almost anything in business or in life. Just simplifying things is so much more valuable than complicating them. Because if you can do one thing simply, it's way better than trying to complicate your life with 100 different things. You're just never going to get anywhere at all. So I really like that approach. If you don't mind, I'd like to take a stab at some rapid fire quick questions. So I'll ask you a question and you answer as quickly as you possibly can.
Okay.
These are not going to be SEO related whatsoever. They're going to be kind of ridiculous questions.
Okay,
totally non-related. Just to kind of give a breather and maybe it'll be a little bit of fun. So this is a rapid fire round. Here's question number 1. Do you prefer texting or phone call?
Texting.
What's your favorite day of the week?
Friday.
Makes sense. What is your favorite city in the entire world that you have not lived in?
London, probably.
I love London. But would you have said Singapore if I let you pick any city?
I don't know. That's a hard question.
Yeah. What was the last song you listened to?
Some house music. I don't even remember the name of the song.
Would you rather be able to speak every language in the world perfectly or be able to speak to animals?
Every language of the world, definitely.
Interesting. Okay, so what would be like your number one language that you'd want to learn if you could easily learn it, any language you want?
Right now, I'd love to learn Chinese.
Chinese, yeah. That would be fantastic. That'd open a lot of different avenues. Would you rather be invisible or have super strength?
That's a good one. Super strength.
Everybody says invisibility. Everybody. You're the first person ever to say super strength. Good on you. Is there a book that you've read recently that it really impacted you?
Whoa, many. The most recent one is actually Bullet Journal. There's a book and there's a methodology. There's a lot of content about it on YouTube. Yeah, it's a very nice book about productivity and a lot of hacks that are actually applicable. So oftentimes, for example, when I read Getting Things Done, I never applied any concepts from that book. But from Bullet Journal, first of all, it talks about all the same like general concepts of productivity. And secondly, it offers quite a few like small actionable things that are easy to implement, and they do improve your organization, your productivity, and your life.
Name one app on your phone that is not pre-installed on the phone that you use all the time.
Okay, easy one. It's called Seconds, and it's for creating your own workouts. So whenever I get up, I have my morning workout routine. And for example, I have my workout routine that is 4 minutes and 40 seconds. And it's all outlined in the app called Seconds. So I need to just put on my headphones, turn play, and the app will tell me what to do based on what I have organized in that small workout.
Awesome. I'll check that one out for sure. All right, Tim, I'd love to give you a chance to talk about Ahrefs for a minute, what you're working on right now, and just talk about how awesome Ahrefs is.
Well, Ahrefs is pretty awesome. To be honest, I don't even know where to start because Ahrefs is such a big beast with so many different use cases and applications. So whenever I'm on a podcast and the host gives me an opportunity to promote Ahrefs and to give people call to action to go and sign up, like blah, 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 I usually actually send people to our YouTube channel. So if you want to learn about SEO and if you want to learn about how Ahrefs will make you like a superhero, it won't give you invisibility or super strength, but it would actually feel that you have them if you're using Ahrefs and if you're doing SEO. Just go to YouTube, search for Ahrefs, Ahrefs, and you'll find a lot of content. A lot of that content was created by us on our YouTube channel, but a lot of other bloggers, marketers, and marketing professionals have created their own videos with their own tips, overviews, and workflows of how they're using Ahrefs to achieve different things. So yeah, if you want to use SEO, if you want to get more traffic from Google to your website, I do recommend you to go to YouTube and check how people are using Ahrefs because immediately you'll want to use it as well.
Yeah, guys, I can't stress enough how awesome the tool Ahrefs is. Also, the YouTube channel, I follow that closely. Samo is awesome. Yeah. I love the videos.
He's the man.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. All the resources, whether it's the paid tool, the free videos, it's all totally worth it. Tim, are you still working on BloggerJet?
No, I have absolutely no time for it.
No time.
Yeah.
I imagine. Yeah. All right, cool. Well, Tim, it was a pleasure having you on. I'm really thankful that we were able to connect and to bring you on the podcast, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks a lot for inviting.
And now it's time to switch from a B2B mindset to P2P. That is peer-to-peer. I'm going to be interviewing people here at Directive Consulting, my peers, my colleagues, to try to find out what makes them tick, to see where they come from, what their goals are professionally, and give you an idea of what the culture is like here at Directive. It's going to be a really interesting opportunity, and maybe you'll even find people that have your exact same job title, your same position, or your same goals, or maybe they just like the same music as you. All right, we're live with Rhett Hartsfield. Rhett, how are you doing?
Doing great today. It's a nice sunny day here in Irvine, California.
Yeah. So you've been here your whole life, right? Southern California.
Yeah, Southern California. I was born in Newport Beach, but I was actually raised up in Santa Cruz. So spent a lot of time up in the Bay Area during the whole tech bubble boom in the early 90s.
Very nice. Yeah. Are you biased toward any particular tech company up north?
Well, Google runs it all, but that's a difficult question there. Biased. I've been up to visit the people at Google, so definitely I think they have a pretty good pulse on what things going on up there. But definitely want to check out the Apple scene too. I haven't spent much time up there, so can't really speak on that behalf.
Rhett is he's a PPC guy. He's like really innovative. That's how I would describe you. He's like you think differently about it. So let's talk about how you got your start in PPC and how you ended up at Directive.
Start at PPC came to me just through a friend. Graduated college, was doing operations, privatizing municipal on-street contracts for the parking industry. Did some really cool stuff with the city of Newport Beach that ended up working with a company that got acquired there. But after that exit, it was a fun little time where I had some freedom and pretty much got in sync with some people doing some web development stuff. And first client I had was a addiction recovery center, which we helped a partner there really ramp up their efforts. And within 3 months, I think we generated a solid six-figure income for them off of our digital marketing efforts.
Sweet. So, and then how does that translate into you getting to Directive? Because I know you've been several other places since then.
Yeah, really. I think, about 5 years ago, I started with another local agency there, helped kind of build up their PPC department from the ground up and really kind of helped them get to that Google Global All-Star, top 1% of agencies in the area. Kind of outgrew my stay there, pretty much started working with some of their big clients. A couple of those got acquired afterwards. I was directly working with a couple people. It was a good little run. But yeah, basically was working with our CRO director, about 5 years ago over at that other agency. Saw she connected over here and was just kind of curious what was going on. I saw her kind of moving up through the ranks and saw she was producing some good work. So got done working for a startup that just got acquired last year and I had some time on my hands to kind of look for the next big thing and want to get back in the agency space. So I reached out. It's been a great fit, but yeah, it's unique because I've done primarily PPC, but I have a lot of SEO kind of knowledge under my belt too, but definitely a diverse little portfolio.
So what's like the end goal? If I'm looking at what your dream job or how you want your career to end perfectly, what would that look like for you?
Oh, well, I think diversification is one of those things that everyone needs to look at, especially in a changing market. I've been a homeowner for the last 10 plus years now. So real estate, I think, is a good end game for the retirement and income properties. But realistically, helping grow businesses online is something I've always been passionate about. So really continue to do that with clients and companies and really kind of mix the two. I think ultimately, though, the next end game would be kind of something more, less involved, would probably be like something like real estate. But realistically, for the time being, it's just working with clients and growing those people individually. Yeah.
Are you more of the mindset like you want to own your own thing or you want to work within a structure? Because there are definitely like people that fit into both of those.
Yeah. So I've actually started an LLC, had a partner, did that, generated revenue. It was one of those things where it's a unique balance. I think, working kind of as an individual contributor role within an organization that you run yourself is a little bit more stressful than kind of working with a more collaborative kind of environment. So ultimately, I think working within a big structure that has a lot of resources involved and in place, kind of like what we have here at Directive, has been a great fit. Ultimately, I think there's always room for some little side things, but realistically, I think being involved with the people is a great end game for me.
So having done your own side thing before or opening your own business, period. If somebody were wanted to start on a side hustle, say somebody here working at Directive wanted to do a little bit of web design on the side or whatever, what advice would you give them on the best way to start?
Set your prices high. Don't start low. Realistically, really kind of come in at a value that really provides value to your client. I mean, I think some of the challenges I kind of came to was kind of early on, built a website that was ranking for addiction recovery terms with a partner of mine, and we built it for $1,500 and we split that. And that didn't include hosting costs. So the cost per clicks for some of these keywords we're ranking for were $200+ a click. I think they generated about over $1 million in 4 months through our digital efforts, but really kind of making sure you set the price right, because when you do good work, you'll get referrals, and you don't want to be kind of set in that kind of lower echelon of work, because really the value add is really not reflecting that.
Let's take a step back, going into like not even your childhood, but just when you're growing up, even early in your career, who's somebody you really looked up to that inspired you that you're not related to?
That's a good question. I have a family friend growing up, Bruce Hatchie. He was the one that really kind of got me into computers, I think early on. He has since passed, but really I was kind of doing MS-DOS, monochrome screens, and really before really computers became big and broadband was a thing, or really even dial-up, got involved in that. So I think from a high level, Bruce Hatchie, he was there, kind of a family friend, and got me involved in tech. Obviously, there's a lot of the big people in the space, the Steve Jobs and so forth. But ultimately, I think, really going back to the core of who brought me here and got me kind of introduced, I would say Bruce definitely was that individual.
Yeah, I think everybody kind of has somebody at some point on that path. They're like, kind of pushes them in that direction. If I were to take a poll right now, not asking you this question, what you think, if I went around to all your coworkers and asked them, what do you think Rhett's spirit animal is? What would they say?
It would be probably a mythical creature. I would say kind of a hybrid between kind of a lion, because I do kind of stand up and will be very vocal, but ultimately I think kind of a hybrid of something a little bit more between a lion and a rabbit, because I think there's some docile pieces and really kind of soft edges there, but ultimately kind of having confidence in what you're doing and kind of showing that, you can kind of transpose that knowledge to the team, but ultimately trying to get to a way that's not offensive and really well received.
I agree with that assessment. I think that's fair. I definitely see the confidence. I see the tenacity. I see the intelligence, but then also I've never really seen you frustrated. So there is that side of you that's also pretty even keeled. So that's fair. That's a good job by you. What's something currently, so I'm not asking what your weakness is. I'm asking something you really want to improve upon. This can be something that you're already good at that you want to get better at, or it can be something you stink at that you want to become passable at, but what do you want to improve on in your life, in your career, or whatever it may be?
I think it really comes down to building lasting relationships. There's been a lot of relationships I've created, business and personal, that just were kind of a little more shallow. Really, I think more realistically, building long relationships, deep relationships with like-minded individuals is something that I've been focusing on. I think initially I got bit by the business bug a little too hard initially. So I was very data and kind of driven by other external factors, but kind of honing down into those like qualitative metrics in a relationship. It's really been one of those things I've been focusing on over the last, quite some time, but one of those areas I think definitely you got to make sure you recenter and align with. Definitely.
I agree with that. Are there any publications you follow like regularly? Your go-to blog, your go-to newsletter?
Yeah. Hacker News, News Y Combinator. Really want to see who's on the bleeding edge there. Some of my friends that have gone through the accelerator programs. So, News Y Combinator, really, Wall Street Journal, some high touch post things. A lot of industry stuff too. There's a lot of those, SEM book and SEO book, and really there's a lot of different, search engine journal and all these different efforts. But really, I think when it comes down to it, just kind of getting a pulse on everything is kind of hard to do now. So that's one of the great things I like about working at the agency. You get all of these different people that are following different things, and they get brought up in a much streamlined manner than kind of having to focus on one piece of kind of following and engagement there.
Definitely. Slack makes that easy. Yeah. Do you ever see yourself going back up to the Bay?
I do, and I have. I would say it's a unique challenge now because it's very saturated up there. The last startup I worked for had a hybrid office where we had a team of about 12 to 15 developers up there. Ultimately, it's a unique space. I think really people are so hyper focused on one discipline or vertical. Often they get kind of narrow sighted in that, which is unique. But ultimately, I could see it if the opportunity arises. But really, the traffic is one of the things I don't really want to compete with. I think really kind of the remote culture is more of the culture I'm starting to align with now.
Definitely. How good are you at hot potato?
Hot potato? I think I'm pretty good.
All right, because we're going to do some mental hot potato, the rapid fire round here.
Cool.
I'm going to bounce some questions off you as fast as you can possibly answer them. Let's do this. Do you prefer texting or phone call?
Phone call.
Why?
Text messages get misconstrued. It's hard to have sarcasm, voice inflection, really that personal connection. Especially now with iPhone, you see when someone's typing and they don't type. I think really kind of getting that connection with someone, I think that's really quick, and really just understanding how they're feeling on the phone. It doesn't have to be even, there's nonverbal on a phone too, call, which is unique.
Favorite day of the week?
I'm going to say Thursday.
Thursday. Interesting. What's your favorite city in the United States besides any that you've lived in?
Seattle.
Good choice. I love Seattle too. Last song you listened to?
Don't know the name, but pass.
It was Ariana Grande, wasn't it?
Good question. Yeah. Whatever was on repeat. I went on my way into work from a Sirius XM on.
We got a Sirius XM guy over here. All right. Would you rather be able to speak every language in the world or be able to speak to animals?
Every language in the world.
What would be your number one fun language to learn?
Mandarin.
That'd be a good one. That'd be cool. If you could talk to any animal, which one would it be?
Probably dogs.
It's the most widespread.
Yeah. People have a lot of dogs. I think, you get to learn a lot about the owners, and it would be an interesting conversation there.
I'd like to talk to snakes because I think it would be interesting to hear how they feel like not having any limbs and how their life actually is, because it seems like a really boring life. All right. Invisibility or super strength?
Invisibility.
Who's your favorite Avenger?
I don't know if they're Avenger. Now I'm trying to figure out Avenger and Marvel. So that is a good one. I guess Thor, if he's
Thor. One. Okay. All right. And what's your favorite movie?
Favorite movie? I still have to go back to, I think either The Goonies or Pirates of Silicon Valley. I think those two different kind of areas of interest, but early on it's been The Goonies, but Pirates of Silicon Valley has really struck a chord with me.
If you have one piece of advice to give the listener right now, what would it be?
Just do what makes you happy. Make sure you follow your heart and don't hold back on something. Just don't want to regret something by not making an action early on in your life or your career.
Cool. All right. Well, that's it for the interview. Rhett, thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
It was an absolute pleasure having Tim onto the show. Please support him by following him on Twitter at Tim Soulo. That's TimSoulo. On Facebook, on LinkedIn, Instagram, wherever you consume content, please follow Tim and check out Ahrefs at ahrefs.com, ahrefs.com. It's one of the best, if not the best, SEO tools out there. I personally use it all the time, and I love it. So please go check that out. Show some support to Tim and Ahrefs. Thank you for listening to Yours in Marketing. I'm Blake Emmel. If you would please do us the favor of subscribing to the podcast if you found value in this, and tell your friends, tell other B2B leaders, tell people that need to hear about this. If you have a website, if you are in marketing or out of marketing, if you just want to learn how to build your website, how to build your business online, or if you just want to learn more about interesting people in general in the B2B space, please subscribe to this podcast. You definitely will get your money's worth because it's free.